see what they do as far as that going forward. But, I mean, I think that's going to be a big part of it, too. You got to continue to try to fix that. But I keep flipping over to the defensive side of the ball. I mean, you're going to have to stop that running attack. I mean, we look at what Jeremy Hill did last week. They've got guys that can attack the ball with the run. I'm not the biggest Andy Dalton fan, but they've still got some wide receivers. I mean, everybody is going to have to play at their highest level for the Browns to come away with a victory here. I think they can. Will they be able to go on the road and do it? Your first really true taste of what it's, hey, you want to play with the big boys? Well, here's the big boys. It's on primetime TV. I don't know if they're ready for the bright lights. I guess we'll find that out on Thursday, but I believe they can. Will they is another thing.
Yeah, this is a big test for them, and you will see here whether or not they're just moderately improved, or whether or not they're actually a contender with this game. And a lot of people talking about how it's the Battle of Ohio. That may be so, but it really is the battle for, who is supreme in the division. And with the Ravens and the Steelers being on again, off again, on again, off again, on again, off again. It looks like, believe it or not, Cleveland could string a couple of extra wins here and be in the driver's seat for the division.
I mean, my son and I were just looking at the division games left last night. We're like, man, this whole division may tie each other in the division as far as their games won and lost against each other, it's that back and forth. We see the difference when Baltimore and Pittsburgh from one game to the next. Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Here we're going to find out. First look at Cincinnati. First look at that matchup there, and then they'll meet up again later on in the season here in Cleveland. And then you've got the one more on the back end with the Ravens still at the very end of the season. But it's very likely that most of these teams, win 3 and lose 3 against each other throughout this season. So that makes these games the most important. Outside the division, that's great, but these are the ones that are going to matter the most. And so there's your test right there. Go out there. I want to say 3 divisional wins is the most the Browns have had since they've come back. I'm not positive. It could be 4, but I'm almost sure it's only 3. I think, and that was just recently in the recent history were they even able to get 2 in one season. So that's going to be big. That's it. It's these teams against each other coming down the stretch.
Well, if you go back many, many years to when the league was still a 28-team and a 30-team league, and you had 5 teams in the division, and instead of the 4 in each, like we have now, it was 4 games. It was 4 teams you were playing against in your division, and it was 8 games, and that was half the season. And if you were able to dominate across those 8 games against your division, you had a pretty good shot. Now, with only 3 teams in each division, it's only 40% of your schedule.
Uh-oh. Looks like we may have lost it
anymore. It's become how well you do in your conference.
Yeah, it's a big difference. You're right when you go those extra couple of games, because now from half you're now playing 10 games out of division. But then again, I mean it's still relatively apples to apples because your teams still play each other. They all play the same divisions when you do the mix up of the scheduling. But yeah, I'm with you there. And you know what? Just sitting here looking. By the way, at the standings, Arizona. You and I have talked about them the last few weeks, man. Looking outside of Cleveland for a minute. What a game the other day, and they continue whatever burned in them in the offseason, getting double-digit wins and not making the playoffs last year. They're coming out with a vengeance here this season as they sit with the best record in the NFL at 7-1.
Yeah, they're my highlight. That's the one bright spot in the season for me is that my adopted second team is doing so well. And, of course, anytime somebody beats Dallas, I'm happy.
And they sit above Seattle, above San Francisco. Seattle, same record as the Browns right now, 5-3 through 8. San Francisco playing 500 ball. Even St. Louis, those 3 teams, except for Arizona, all bunched up within 2 games of each other there. The NFC South, to me, the opposite of the AFC North. All the teams 500 or worse. New Orleans leads that division with a 500 record. Definitely, I would say the lowest of the 8 divisions in football from what we've seen here. New Orleans just getting themselves to 500 there, but we've seen them. We saw them here in Cleveland. They are a completely different team at home and on the road. Carolina's been disappointing. Atlanta, huge disappointment to me because early on they looked like they were going to get themselves together offensively, and they've been in a bit of a tailspin lately now as they sit at 2-6.
Yeah, I was messaging with OCU Manura during the off season. Getting friendly with him from all his years in New York, and he was telling me how great the Falcons are going to be this year, and I haven't talked to him since the season started, and I usually don't. So I'm just going to let things go their way and try not to antagonize him before he takes me off his good boy list,
Yeah, and exactly. That's another one that the Browns have later on in the season. They've taken on New Orleans and Tampa. They've still got Atlanta and Carolina out of that South. Detroit still leads the North 6-2. Philadelphia, I'll tell you, they've got to sit tight now for the next 3-4 weeks. No break for Nick Foles, so a bit on the closer end for a return. But their faith is now in the hands of Mark Sanchez for probably the next month going forward. And on the flip side, losing D'Amico Ryans as well, a big shot at the division leaders in the NFC East.
Yeah, boy, Rex Ryan has to be kicking himself right in the head right now that he's got Michael Vick and the Eagles have Mark Sanchez. I mean, that's just unbelievable. I was telling somebody yesterday on the phone. I got a phone call from a friend back east, and he's not in New York City. He's in central New Jersey, but we were on the phone for about 30 minutes yesterday, and he said to me, "I would have never guessed it." And, he said, "I would have never guessed that Mark Sanchez would be a starting quarterback in the NFL ever again." And I said, well, that's why they call it the NFL. It's a not-for-long league.
And that's it. It really is. Whatever you think you know today, it changes tomorrow. Just like 3 weeks ago, they were filling out golden Buckeye cards for Tom Brady and telling him he could get 50-cent cups of coffee in New England. Now the Patriots sit 7-2. Nobody's got much to say about that anymore, as they just dismantled Denver and have firmly put themselves after the first half of the season as the cream of the crop in the AFC. I remember after that ridiculous article we were talking about a couple of weeks ago about is Tom Brady done, I said just ignore the noise. When the smoke's done, they'll still be there at the end in the AFC. Don't listen to this garbage. And clearly you see now as they've gotten humming, putting some 50 spots on the board. Gronkowski is getting going with Brady. New England, the cream of the crop so far in the AFC.
And I guarantee you, knowing Western Connecticut like I do, I guarantee you that the Eli Manning posters came down and the Tom Brady posters went back up in all those places like Mystic Pizza in Mystic, Connecticut, and the Donut Shop in Mystic, Connecticut. All those Eli Manning posters came down, and Tom Brady went back up because that part of Connecticut, that they kind of blow with the wind. Whoever's winning is who they root for.
Too funny. And you know what? The other teams up top, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. We've talked about the North. That entire division is over 500 and really cooking right now. Cincinnati 5-2-1. 6-3 for the Steelers, 5-3 for the Browns because they had the early bye week, 5-4 for Baltimore. That'll show you just in 2 weeks. One team's in first place, 2 weeks later they're in last place, and it's going to continue to be like that. And when I said I could see a lot of these teams all finishing 500 in the division, looking at the divisional record so far, Pittsburgh's 2-2, Baltimore's 2-3, Cleveland's 1-2, and they've got the fourth one coming up here. Cincinnati 2-0 with their first meeting with the Browns coming up here. So obviously a lot right now. Cincinnati's sitting at the top of the division, but very clearly you could see how whichever team wins 4 out of the 6 in the division is going to be the one to rise to the top, because I could see everybody else playing to a standoff there. Colts last night, we saw what they did offensively. I'll tell you though, it just shows from week to week. 1 week they can show up and look unstoppable with Andrew Luck. The next week it's the opposite, as we saw what happened with them just a couple of weeks ago. But last night they got the ship right, and of course Denver as well. Those teams, just the standout teams. But man, there's a lot. Look at the parity in the AFC. Outside of the division leaders in the North, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 teams that'll be competing for the wild card, all within a game of each other at 5-3, 5-4, 4-5. Going to be a lot of fun competition for those playoff spots down the stretch in the AFC. Another reason the Browns need to win the division, because that wild card is going to be a minefield for somebody to get.
Yeah, no question. It's always much better to win your division than be the 5th or 6th seed. But, I have to tell you, if you had said to me in July that the Browns would be 5-3, halfway through the season, I don't know if we'd be talking about Mike Pettin for Coach of the Year. That's for sure. But you certainly got to put him and Bruce Arians up there as two of the better candidates this year so far.
Well, yeah, a lot more. I'm with Bruce Arians. I'm with you on that one. Let's see how the second half of the season goes before we add Coach Pettin. But I do agree he would be in my conversation for sure. But there's a lot left to be seen. Dr. Football, it starts Thursday, prime time Thursday night football. Browns and Bengals under the lights. What do you think happens here in this one? Do the Browns? Do they do what a lot of people are waiting to see if they can do, or does Cincinnati continue to be the cream of the crop so far in the division this year?
I think the Browns could pull out a win if they play their brand of football and if they don't make any mistakes. You'll see pretty well before the end of the game if they're in tune with what's going on. If they're playing a mistake-free game or as little mistakes as possible. If they're keeping it close, anything is possible. But if they get off on the wrong foot and the Bengals go up 3 touchdowns on them, I would start to be worried about that game. And then even if they lose, they're still 5-4. They've had a great season so far. They've done better than anybody has expected.
And I'm with you on that. You're still above 500, even if the game doesn't go your way. But I look back to the second one last year, and this was when the free fall was going on, and Jason Campbell went in the tank down the stretch, and all of the things that just fell apart. Remember that game? It was the most statistical abomination. It's just unbelievable statistically that the Browns defensively dominated Cincinnati the way that they did, and they lost by 21 points. Remember, they gave up that fluke 31-point quarter. And I mean, I'm saying fluke not as in justifying it, but just it was crazy because I think they had less than 100 yards passing the whole game. It was the Browns' defense had turnovers. It was a hell of a game, and you lost by 3 touchdowns. It was statistically impossible, yet the Browns found a way to go out there and do it last year. So they have shown just a year ago that the defense can go out there and play with the Bengals. So we'll see. And Brian Hoyer did beat the Bengals at home last year. So it's not like we got to go back 15 years to show the last time they did it, but it's different on the road, and it's a different season. So you got to go out here and do it again.
Yeah, and that's the thing, consistency. You got to be consistent. If they're consistent on Thursday like they were on Sunday, expect good things. Even if they wind up losing the game, expect good things down the stretch. And, I have to disagree with Charles a little bit because even though Pettin's made some coaching mistakes, he's man enough to admit it. And, he's man enough to take it on in his press conference. And that's what a head coach who's a first-year head coach does. He's still learning. He's not only learning how to be He's not only learning how to be a winner and how for his team to be winners. He's learning how to be a good head man, and that's what's important. He's learning how to be a good head man.
I agree with everything you just said, but that doesn't make me vote for you for Coach of the Year. Bruce Arians is a runaway for Coach of the Year as far as I can see it so far through the first half of the season. But that's why they play him half of the time. How many times have we seen years where a team's gone 7-1 in the first half and then went in the tank in the second half and all of that? So we got a lot of football left to be played, and I cannot wait to talk about it with you, Bill. Next Tuesday, we'll be looking back at Week 10 in the NFL. Browns and Bengals and all the good games coming up this week. We'll be focusing ahead on the next one for the Browns and so much more. So I'm looking forward to catching back up with you in a week.
All right, J-Rock, you be good, and you guys out there in the chat room, you behave, okay? Stop acting like animals when the girl comes on, all right?